The remarkable works of Canadian inventor John Hutchison has drawn widespread attention from businessmen and government scientists since 1979, when he began using ultra-high electromagnetic frequencies to transform matter in some very unusual ways. It has come to be known as the Hutchison effect.
The objects you're seeing moving there is a form of levitation by translational movement, meaning that the objects become lighter and can float around.
John Hutchison was born on October 19, 1945 in Vancouver, BC. From an early age, he displayed a natural curiosity and insatiable desire to understand the world around him. Growing up in a modest household, awkward but confident, he found solace in books, science magazines, and endlessly tinkering with gadgets. Instead of playgrounds and midnight watch parties, John would spend hours exploring the local library, immersing himself in the realms of physics, electromagnetism, and engineering. He was fascinated by the works of Nikola Tesla, and as he grew older, he began experimenting with the concepts he had spent his early years reading about. Fringe science in his parents' garage, despite his limited resources, his innate ingenuity and determination propelled him forward. In high school, John's passion for science flourished. He spent countless hours in the chemistry and physics labs, absorbing knowledge and honing his skills. His teachers immediately recognized his potential and encouraged him to pursue his dreams and explore the possibilities that lay ahead. Upon graduating, John enrolled in college, where he delved deeper into the intricacies of electromagnetism and its potential applications. He found himself captivated by the intersection of science and engineering, constantly seeking new avenues to explore. As a young adult, John grew into a tall, muscular frame, a perpetually disheveled and physically fit-looking mad scientist. His rhetoric was more than that to those that he spoke to. He was soft-spoken, kind, had a big heart, and a welcoming nature that readily put people at ease. John would be a loud voice in gun reform, lobbying against gun control laws in Canada, and he quickly gained the full support of gun owners across the nation, including high-ranking officials and delegates. Even then, Prime Minister Joe Clark supported John's motions. And in 1996, a new bill was passed, with little opposition, largely from John's efforts. John was not so fortunate with his electrical tinkering. Funded solely out of pocket, he relied on part-time jobs and makeshift laboratories to continue his experiments. And by the late 70s, John's home was filled with a wide array of varied electronics, repurposed radios, oscilloscopes, broken down and cobbled together electronics, stacked from floor to ceiling.
Grant Fredericks visited the lab this afternoon and has some interesting observations.
When one walks off East Hastings Street in Burnaby into John Hutchison's world, one leaves behind the conventions of the 20th century and enters a scene more in common with something out of a Jules Verne science fiction novel.
John's breakthrough came in 1980 when he stumbled upon a series of perplexing phenomena during his experiments with radio waves and electromagnetic fields. Twisting random knobs and adjusting dials here and there, objects seemed to defy gravity, behaving in ways that contradicted established scientific principles. Objects would levitate seemingly on their own. Metals morphed and twisted as if they were made of liquid. Glass jars shattered into 1,000 pieces, although the surrounding environment remained unaffected, harmless to humans. News of John's incredible discoveries spread like wildfire through the scientific community, and people from all walks of life attended John's humble home to see the effect in person. He had opened his laboratory to fellow researchers and curious minds, inviting them to witness the effect firsthand. One particular witness to the event would become close friends with John, George Hathaway.
Okay, so I'm sorry, that's a klystron tube?
It's a klystron power supply. It's the power supply for the klystron, and it will go down to 40 hertz, CPS, cycles per second. Now, John, is this, do you have klystron tubes here? Okay, so you haven't plugged them in lately?
George would take the reins in marketing the effect. Alongside John, he reached out to a number of high-profile research labs, including more than one government agency around the globe. Understandably, skeptics emerged, perhaps more than the believers, challenging the authenticity of his claims, suggesting the effect was merely tricky camera work, piano wires, and deceptive angles.
So in case you're in any doubt about how that was done, let me reveal the secret. There it is.
And when it came time for John to replicate the effect for important agencies like the US government, he was unable to reproduce the strange energy fields, and importantly, did not have the answers as to how the effect occurred.
And I'd like to present to you here some of the samples from my laboratory that was in operation 1979 to 1988. And I would like to start with that my laboratory was a Tesla type of laboratory, incorporating various other technologies, Van de Graaff and RF generation equipment and nuclear equipment, weak nuclear forces. And my lab was powered by 400 watts power up to 4,000 watts power. And presenting to you the first sample here of aluminum metal, very heavy and dense. It appears that this sample was literally pulled apart this way. As one can see, the strings coming out of the end of it. A lot of energy to do that. The material must have been semi-fluid for that to happen. In the lab, this happens frequently, and also levitation happens frequently. And if the samples don't levitate, sometimes nothing will happen, or the samples themselves will be pulled apart or broken in two, as this piece here. These pieces are samples of the 1987 and 1988 time period. One can imagine the amount of power to do that. Even conventionally, this kind of power would be immense to literally rip this size of material apart. But this material was ripped apart at a distance from the machinery from 6 feet to about 100 feet.
Just as quickly as interest peaked, it faded. The scientific community brushed John's discovery off as a hoax, and the lack of mainstream acceptance and financial support made it increasingly difficult for John to continue his research. Despite the challenges, for the next 2 decades, John continued his experiments, this time meticulously recording data and capturing video evidence. Governments may have passed John off as an eccentric, and perhaps most of the general public did too, although the charming, soft-spoken and intelligent way about John opened different doors of opportunity for him, and he became a sort of spokesperson for fringe science, appearing on countless talk shows, newsreels, radio shows, and eventually podcasts, where he would speak about a variety of things, including his research into the effect. This, in turn, would inspire hundreds, if not thousands, of backyard scientists, hoping to replicate and ultimately understand John's discovery. And in recent years, there's been an upsurge of people claiming to have done it. In 2004, John would become unusually quiet about his research, but would reappear in 2006 with major breakthroughs. Once again, government and military agencies around the world began contacting John, all of them hungry for his now allegedly proven technology. Ultimately, in 2010, he would announce the patent sale of the Hutchison effect to a German research team who had filmed the effect over the course of 2 weeks in 2007. After the sale, the research lab went silent, and the Hutchison effect has once again slipped into obscurity. John now lives on the Oregon coast with his wife Nancy, where they would set up a new research facility based around new energy development, with, of course, some fringe science divisions dedicated solely to the wild. Thank you for watching or listening. I'm so very happy and proud to be producing for this wonderful channel, Bad Day Headquarters. and I will be back for at least one more installment of Something Strange. You can show your love for this series as well as the channel by simply liking the video, subscribing with notifications on, and commenting. The mystery of this proven technology that is now gone dark is an enigma all on its own, and I'm truly interested in your thoughts on fringe science like this, the Hutchison effect. Until next time, thank you for joining me for this episode of Something Strange.